A 17-year-old girl sits in the cockpit of a commercial flight carrying 312 passengers when the autopilot system locks itself into a fatal descent toward the ocean. And she is the only person on board who knows the override code because her father, the lead software engineer who designed the system, made her memorize it as a game when she was 12. Now, with both pilots unconscious and the plane dropping altitude every second, she has less than 8 minutes to recall a 16-digit sequence she has not thought about in 5 years. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me, and please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Maya Chen boards flight 447 at exactly 6:15 in the evening, her backpack heavy with textbooks and her phone buzzing with messages from her mother asking if she remembered to pack her allergy medication. She finds her seat in row 32, window side, and settles in for the 5-hour journey from Seattle to Boston. The flight attendants go through their safety demonstrations while passengers around her ignore the instructions, scrolling through their devices or already closing their eyes for sleep. Maya pulls out her laptop, planning to finish her college application essay during the flight. She is 17, a senior in high school, and this trip is supposed to be a campus visit to MIT, the university her father attended 20 years ago. Her father. She has not seen him in 3 months because he has been traveling constantly for work, something about a new aviation software system his company is rolling out across multiple airlines. He promised to meet her in Boston, promised they would tour the campus together, promised this time would be different. Maya tries not to think about all the other promises he has broken. The plane takes off smoothly, ascending through thick clouds until they break into clear sky. The seatbelt sign turns off and people begin moving around the cabin, reaching for overhead compartments, heading to the restrooms, asking flight attendants for drinks and snacks. Maya opens her laptop but finds herself staring at the blank document, unable to focus on writing about her future when her present feels so uncertain. She closes the computer and stares out the window instead, watching the ground disappear far below, the cities becoming tiny collections of lights, the world becoming abstract and distant. An hour into the flight, the pilot makes an announcement about reaching cruising altitude, about smooth conditions ahead, about arriving on time. His voice sounds calm and routine, the kind of voice that makes passengers feel safe, feel like everything is under control. Maya closes her eyes and tries to sleep. She wakes to screaming, not the screaming of one person but the collective sound of dozens of voices rising in panic. Maya sits up fast, her heart already racing before her mind catches up to understand what is happening. The plane is shaking, not the gentle turbulence she has experienced on other flights but a violent rattling that makes the overhead compartments bounce open, sending bags and jackets tumbling into the aisles. People are clutching their armrests, some crying, some frozen in shock. A flight attendant stumbles past, her face pale, speaking urgently into a phone. Maya looks out the window and sees the wing tilting at an angle that does not look right, the horizon appearing where the sky should be. Then comes the announcement, but this time it is not the pilot's calm voice. It is a flight attendant and her words are shaking. There has been an incident in the cockpit. Both pilots have collapsed. They need medical assistance immediately. They need anyone with flight experience to identify themselves. The cabin erupts into chaos. People are shouting, some unbuckling and trying to rush toward the front of the plane, flight attendants attempting to maintain order while their own fear shows clearly on their faces. Maya feels her breath coming too fast, her hands shaking as she grips the armrest. She hears fragments of conversation from the rows around her. Food poisoning, someone says. Both pilots ate the same meal. Others are speculating about heart attacks, about terrorism, about mechanical failure. A man 3 rows ahead is on his phone, somehow getting a signal, shouting to someone that the plane is going down. Maya forces herself to look out the window again and realizes with cold certainty that he might be right. The plane is descending, not in a controlled way but in a steady drop that she can feel in her stomach, the way you feel an elevator falling too fast. A flight attendant appears on the intercom, her voice barely controlled, asking again if anyone has piloting experience. No one responds. The attendant explains that they have established radio contact with ground control, that instructions are being provided, that someone will need to go into the cockpit and follow those instructions. Maya hears a man several rows back volunteer. He says he has played flight simulators, says he understands basic controls. The flight attendants rush him toward the front of the plane. Maya closes her eyes and thinks about her father, about the last time she saw him 4 months ago when he was sitting at his kitchen table with papers spread everywhere, mumbling about code sequences and override protocols. She remembers asking what he was working on and he said it was the safety system for the new autopilot, said it was designed to take over if pilots became incapacitated, said it had multiple redundancies and fail-safes. She remembers him looking tired, looking stressed, saying the pressure from the company was intense because if anything went wrong, if the system failed, people would die. 10 minutes pass and the man who went to the cockpit returns, his face gray with terror. He tells the flight attendant in a voice loud enough for nearby passengers to hear that he cannot do it, that the controls are not responding, that the autopilot has locked itself into some kind of emergency protocol and he cannot override it. The flight attendant asks what that means, and the man says it means the system thinks it is saving the plane by attempting an emergency landing. But there is no airport below them, only ocean, and the autopilot is descending toward a water landing that will kill everyone on board. Someone asks how long they have, and the man says maybe 15 minutes before impact, maybe less. Maya feels something click in her mind, a memory surfacing through the panic. She's 12 years old, sitting in her father's office while he works late. He is frustrated with something, typing furiously, then stopping and rubbing his face with both hands. He turns to her and says he needs to memorize a code, a long sequence of numbers and letters, but he is terrible at memorization. He asks if she wants to play a game. He will give her a sequence to remember, and if she can recite it back to him in 1 week, he will take her to that amusement park she has been asking about. Maya, eager and young and wanting his attention, agrees immediately. He writes down a 16-digit code, a mixture of numbers and letters that seems random. He explains it as an override code for a safety system, something that can manually reset the autopilot in case of critical failure. He makes her repeat it back to him 5 times that night. Then every night for a week he quizzes her until she can say it perfectly. At the end of the week he seems satisfied but distracted. He never takes her to the amusement park. She never thinks about the code again. Until now. Maya stands up, her legs shaking, and pushes into the aisle. A flight attendant tries to wave her back to her seat, but Maya says she needs to get to the cockpit. The attendant looks at her like she is insane, this teenage girl in jeans and a college sweatshirt, but Maya says her father designed the autopilot system, says she might know how to override it. The attendant hesitates for only a second before grabbing Maya's arm and pulling her toward the front of the plane. They pass rows of terrified passengers, past people crying and praying and holding each other. Maya tries to block it all out, tries to focus only on remembering that sequence, but her mind feels blank with fear. She cannot recall the first digit. She cannot recall anything except her father's tired face and the way he looked disappointed when she asked him about the amusement park weeks later, and he did not remember the promise. The cockpit is small and crowded with people. Both pilots are slumped in their seats, unconscious but breathing. The man who tried to help earlier is standing back, looking defeated. A flight attendant is on the radio with someone from ground control, frantically describing the situation. Maya pushes forward and looks at the instrument panel. It is a wall of screens and switches and buttons that mean nothing to her, but then she sees it, a small digital display screen near the center console with text scrolling across it. System locked, emergency protocol engaged, manual override required. Below the text is a blinking cursor and a message, enter authorization code. Maya reaches for the keypad below the screen, but her hands are shaking so badly she can barely extend her fingers. The flight attendant on the radio is explaining that a teenage passenger thinks she knows an override code, and the voice on the other end, male and urgent, says they have nothing to lose. The plane is 4 minutes from impact. Someone asks Maya if she is sure about this, and she wants to scream that no, she is not sure. She has not thought about this code in 5 years. She cannot even remember what she had for breakfast this morning. How is she supposed to remember a random 16-digit sequence from when she was 12 years old? But she does not say any of that. She closes her eyes and tries to put herself back in that moment, back in her father's office with the smell of coffee and printer paper, back to being 12 and eager and believing her father would keep his promises. The first character comes to her, the number 4, then the letter K, then another number 7. Maya opens her eyes and begins typing on the keypad, her fingers moving slowly, each keystroke feeling like a guess. She enters 8 characters and pauses, her mind blank. She cannot remember what comes next. The plane shudders violently and someone behind her gasps. The voice on the radio is saying 3 minutes, they have 3 minutes. Maya closes her eyes again and hears her father's voice in her memory. He is saying the code out loud, breaking it into chunks to make it easier. For K7, then M38, then Q92, then something else. What was it? What came after Q92? Her mind feels like static, like everything is jumbled and wrong. Then she remembers the way her 12-year-old self made up a story to remember the sequence, a stupid child's trick where each character represented something. 4 was the number of people in her family. K was for her cat named Kelvin who had just died. 7 was her age when they got the cat. M was for Monday, her father's least favorite day. 3 was the number of times he said he hated Mondays. 8 was how many hours he worked on Mondays. She remembers the rest now, the whole silly story, and her fingers fly across the keypad. She enters the final character and holds her breath. For a long moment nothing happens. The screen continues to blink. The plane continues to descend. Maya feels her chest tighten with the certainty that she got it wrong, that she failed, that everyone on this plane is going to die because she could not remember correctly. Then the screen changes, the text disappears and new words appear. Override accepted, manual control restored, the plane's rattling stops. The violent descent smooths into a gentle leveling. The cockpit fills with the sound of alarms shutting off one by one. The voice on the radio is shouting, asking what happened, asking for confirmation. The flight attendant grabs the radio and says the override worked, the system is responding, they have control. Ground control says they are vectoring them to the nearest airport, says emergency crews are standing by, says to follow their instructions exactly. Maya backs away from the console, her legs giving out, and she sits hard on the cockpit floor. Someone is talking to her but she cannot process the words. She watches as ground control guides someone through the basics of controlling the plane, watches as they establish a shaky but stable flight path toward land. The man who tried to help earlier is back at the controls, following instructions step by step, and though his hands shake and his voice cracks, the plane responds. They are going to make it. All 312 people on this flight are going to live because Maya remembered a code her father taught her 5 years ago and then forgot about. A code that existed because her father put it there as a fail-safe, as insurance against exactly this kind of disaster. 30 minutes later, the plane lands hard but safely at an emergency airstrip. Emergency vehicles surround them immediately, medics rushing on board to treat the pilots who are starting to regain consciousness. Passengers are crying with relief, hugging strangers, calling loved ones. Maya sits in her seat while chaos moves around her, feeling numb and distant. A paramedic checks her vital signs and tells her she is in shock, that she should come to the hospital for observation. Maya nods but does not move. She pulls out her phone and sees 17 missed calls from her mother. She also sees one text message from her father sent 3 hours ago before she boarded the plane. The message says he is sorry but he cannot make it to Boston, there is a work emergency, he will have to reschedule. Maya stares at the message for a long time, then she deletes it. The story breaks on the news within hours. Teenage girl saves 300 passengers by remembering override code. Her father's company releases a statement praising the safety systems, carefully avoiding any mention of how both pilots became incapacitated in the first place or why the autopilot locked into a fatal protocol. Reporters want to interview Maya but she refuses. She does not want to talk about being a hero. She does not want to explain that she only remembered the code because her father bribed her with a promise he never kept. She does not want to think about the fact that if he had kept that promise, if he had taken her to the amusement park and never quizzed her again, she probably would have forgotten the code completely and everyone would have died. 2 days after the incident, her father calls. He is crying, which she has never heard before. He says he is sorry, says he had no idea she still remembered, says he is so proud of her. Maya listens to him talk and realizes she does not feel angry anymore. She does not feel much of anything. She tells him she has to go and hangs up. 3 months later, Maya starts at MIT. She changes her major from pre-med to aerospace engineering. When people ask why, she tells them she wants to design better systems, safer systems, systems that do not require teenage girls to remember codes from their childhood to prevent disasters. She never tells them the full story. She never explains that she is doing this because she understands now that systems fail, that people fail, that even the smartest engineers and the most sophisticated technology can create situations where everything depends on chance and memory, and a father who is too distracted to keep a promise to his daughter. She learns everything she can about aviation systems and autopilot protocols and fail-safe mechanisms. She graduates top of her class. She goes to work for the same company her father worked for, the company that built the system that nearly killed 312 people. On her first day, they assign her to a team designing next-generation safety protocols. Her supervisor, an older engineer who was friends with her father, tells her they are lucky to have her, that her unique perspective will be valuable. Maya does not tell him that her perspective is simply this: systems designed by humans will always have the flaws of humans built into them, and sometimes the only thing standing between disaster and survival is a child's game and a broken promise and sheer, impossible luck. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.